Good afternoon, students. Please remember to pause the audio after you hear my question and try to give your own answer. So question 1. Explain in your own words the cause of the smog which has been affecting Malaysia and Singapore. Pause the audio. Around 30 years ago, Indonesia began to clear forests to make room for the growing of palm oil trees. They have found that the cheapest way to get rid of the existing forest is to burn it, and it is this burning which is creating the smoke. Question 2. Are there any laws in Indonesia preventing the burning of forest? Pause the audio. Yes, there are at least 3 laws, but they are ineffective, partly because of corruption. Question 3. How significant is the palm oil business in Indonesia? Pause the audio. Indonesia is the world's biggest producer of palm oil. It has exports of around $18 billion and employs around 5 million people. So it is an extremely important part of the economy of Indonesia. Question 4. What was the response of the minister responsible for this area? Pause the audio. The minister behaved in an aggressive and unsympathetic way by referring to the Singaporeans as behaving like children, which would have been certain to annoy them. Question 5. Can you describe how peat exacerbates the smoke problem? Pause the audio. Peat is a highly combustible material and can be found up to 30 meters into the ground. Therefore, when burning, can burn for an extremely long time and can be very difficult to extinguish, therefore creating a massive amount of smoke. Question 6. The article gives some information about the kind of corruption which makes the problem worse. Can you describe this, please? Pause the audio. They give the example of a governor in Sumatra which has the largest palm oil areas being arrested for corruption. One of his offences was to take bribes in return for logging permits, which would allow companies to destroy forest, which would subsequently have led to the burning. Last question, number 6, and this is an essay question. This story clearly shows how one country's irresponsible behaviour towards the environment can affect other countries. It is similar to the problem of global warming, for example, where highly industrialized countries emit enormous quantities of poisonous gases into the atmosphere, which result in a disastrous change to the world's climate. Here is your essay question. Should Thailand follow the guidelines of international organizations, such as the UN, in regard to activities which can damage the global environment, for example in the use of certain fuels and the consumption of oil? So for this question, just to give you an outline, the introduction should be describing what we mean by global climate and environmental problems. Maybe give 1 or 2 examples. Then your second and third paragraphs should be describing why we should and why we should not follow the suggestions or rules made by international organizations. The second paragraph should be quite clear, ideas about protecting the world we live in should be easy to support. The third paragraph, where you will try to give one or two ideas why we should not follow international guidelines, is a bit more difficult. What I would suggest you do is talk about whether international guidelines are fair for all countries. For example, America, which is a highly developed and industrialized country, already has substantial advantages compared to Thailand, based upon past activities which damaged the environment, whereas Thailand is still a growing country. Maybe the guidelines for a developing country like Thailand should not be so strict. And your conclusion, as always, neutral. Yes, we should follow the guidelines set by international organizations in order to protect our Earth. However, we should also take into consideration local factors, such as the short-term economic consequences upon our society. Thank you for listening, students. Goodbye.